Hello there, folks. This is Jay Frost, and welcome to How to Raise. That's our, of course, weekly show with leaders in the field talking to you about how you can raise money for your nonprofit's mission. So it's a pleasure to welcome you here today. This is part of the Philanthropy Mastermind series. If you're not familiar with us, we would encourage you to go over and take a look at the rest of what we do. In addition to the series, over on the DonorSearch website, that's the sponsor of the series. They've been sponsoring all of our work back to 2016. And there are, we've done about 650 plus sessions in that time, which consist of a show on Tuesdays on topical matters, the news of the day. Of course, this series, How to Raise, on Thursdays, and our podcast, which drops on Friday nights. So you can check all that out and more at the DonorSearch site. That's at donorsearch.net under the resources tab, or on their YouTube channel, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. It's all there for you. So thank you very much again, both to you for being here, if you're here live, or if you're watching this recording later, for checking this out, and especially to our sponsor, DonorSearch. We won't be talking about them much today, unless our guest chooses to mention them for some reason, but that's not through any lack of affection. Not only is all of our content over there on the DonorSearch site, but they help us figure out who's in a position to help our work. And so you can learn more about not just DonorSearch, but your own donors by simply going to the DonorSearch site at donorsearch.net. Check all that out there. Now, today's session, of course, is on the 7 steps to turn prospects into relationships. And what is that all about? About effective relationship building. And that really works when you understand your audience, prioritize their needs, etc. And all of that is no stranger to our presenter today. She's going to be taking you through all that, not only to provide great information for you, but to talk with you. So I hope you'll take advantage, if you're here with us live, of 2 things. First of all, the Q&A, which you can use at any time to list your questions, but also the chat. And I want to encourage people who are here with us live to go ahead and just warm up that space for our guest presenter today. Please just say hello, maybe which part of the world that you're from, which organization you're with, maybe what you do. All of that would be so helpful to us and to one another. And so thank you, Cara, for already warming that up from Mercy Health in Baltimore. Thank you. Really do appreciate your starting that. So please do join Cara there in the chat and just say hello, and use that as a space to play so that you can get to know one another. If you want to comment there, of course you can. And we, in addition, will also be looking at the Q&A throughout. So again, hello, Elena, and there's Beth, our presenter. I'll be introducing her to you now. And William and Nikki and Catherine and Megan and Vanetta. It's great to see all of you here and from all over the place. Nobody from abroad today, but we usually do have folks from around the world. So you may see some interesting voices and places right there in the chat. Please do keep using that throughout. We'll also be using that as a repository for links. So if our presenter mentions anything today that will be beneficial to you in terms of a link to additional content, we'll make sure it's included there. There are also a couple times when you'll see a QR code, including at the end of her presentation. So keep your phones handy. You may want to grab some of that content. So again, our thanks to everybody there, Kimiko and Vanetta and Alir, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and Kevin and Abby and Autumn, all of you for saying hello. Now, today, our presenter, our guest, is Beth Bardowski, the president of Iris Creative Group and the founder of the Nonprofit Toolkit. She has over 30 years of experience in design, branding, and nonprofit communications. She's a strategic leader who's dedicated to helping organizations build meaningful connections with their audiences. As president of Iris Creative, she has led the award-winning firm since 1996, and where she specializes in brand development and relationship communications, the focus, of course, of much of today's conversation, for participation-driven organizations, which all of our organizations aspire to be. Also, in 2013, she launched the Nonprofit Toolkit, a platform that equips nonprofit leaders with the marketing tools and training needed to attract supporters, build strong brands, and inspire engagement. So I'm sure she'll allude to some of that today, but of course, today it's all about you, and it's all about the 7 steps to turn prospects into relationships. Beth, thank you so much for coming and sharing today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity to do this and share this topic, which is near and dear to my heart. with your community. Thanks everybody for joining today. And I'm just going to jump on here and grab my slides and we'll be ready to go. All right. Fantastic. So we're going to be talking today, 7 steps to turn prospects into relationships. And you might not, I mean, I don't know if any of you are marketers or have marketers or do anything in that side of things, but marketing is all about relationships, getting to that point where you're inviting people into your world, into your life. One of my favorite definitions of marketing is that what it does is that it creates the environment so that a sale can happen. And I know in the nonprofit world, we don't like to use words like sale, but all a sale really is inviting people in to take an action that is valuable. So in the marketing world, we would call that direct sort of sales action taking stuff conversion marketing. You've seen it, you've experienced it. If you're on social, you see all of that stuff. If you're on, watching television, commercials, all of that stuff, which says things to you, do this now, buy this now. In your case, donate money to us now. That's conversion marketing. Volunteer for us now. Conversion marketing. Come to our event. These are the aspects of that point in the relationship where you're saying, please do a thing. And a lot of times what happens is because when we think about marketing very narrowly in this part of, obviously the whole point of building a relationship is to ultimately get someone to take the action that you want them to take. And I often will joke and say, do any of you have kids? How easy is it to get them to take the actions that you want them to take? You have to build a relationship. You've got to sometimes convince, you've got to make them believe you, you've got to build trust. All of that stuff has to be there so that that action can be taken. And a lot of times what we forget as communicators, as relationship builders, as marketers, is that that's part of the process too. And it's, what do we need to do to get to the point where someone is ready to be asked, somebody is ready to come to an event, ready to say yes, ready to take that next step? That is a whole other side of marketing called relationship marketing. And that's where you're having the opportunity to share values. And that's partially you sharing what you value, you sharing the value of your organization. But it's also in relationship marketing about understanding who you're talking to, what they care about, and where they're coming from. A lot of times I'll talk about, in marketing, we have a tendency to talk about ourselves, to say, this is what we do, and this is all the stuff that we do, and look at all of the accomplishments that we've made. And that often can land very hollowly on someone that you're trying to build a relationship with. When someone can see that you're there for them, that you're saying, what do you need? How can we serve you? And imagine in your appeal letters and things like that, if you're saying, because of you, this happened. One of the hardest things to really accept in the world of doing valuable work is that, okay, our statement, no one cares that you exist. I know that sounds dramatic. I know it sounds harsh, but when you have to think very critically about your role in the world, and that what people care about is fueling their dreams, is doing the things that they care about. And so what they're looking at from you is, how can you be a conduit by which their dreams can be realized? And so if you can think about yourself as a facilitator of someone else's dreams, you can leave the session right now, right? Like that's the big thing. How can you look at this work and look at this relationship building process from that lens? And it's important to know both of these things are important. So conversion marketing is often called push marketing. Relationship marketing is often called pull marketing. And it's easy to look at that big giant word push and go, no, 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 no. That's uncomfortable. That's pushy marketing, but it's not. It is important to have both. You need a balance of push versus pull, push versus pull. If you spend all of your time in relationship marketing, you're going to make some really good friends and be broke, right? You've got to make sure that at some point in a relationship, you ask, you invite, you get people to take that next step. But a lot of that really starts with getting clarity on where do you need to start, where do you need to focus? Because when it comes to building relationships, more is not the answer necessarily. You don't just need more people, you need more of the right people. And a lot of times, especially in nonprofit organizations, in my organization, we work with all nonprofit and governmental organizations. We don't do business, we don't do corporate, we live in this world. And one of the things that I think is different about nonprofit communications and relationship building and marketing than business stuff is that in the business world, you're looking to get people to buy something. In the nonprofit world, we're looking to get people to buy into something. So we're looking to cultivate hearts and minds. You've got to build emotion. You've got to build connection so that people want to come along on this journey with you. But what happens sometimes is that in our hopes, in our efforts to get people on board, to get people taking the actions that we need them to take, we can just kind of be everywhere and think that everyone is our audience because you know that what you do is valuable and important. Everybody should care about it because it's so valuable, and it is. But if you try and build relationships with everyone everywhere all at once, you're going to burn out. You're going to end up being an inch deep and a mile wide, as opposed to an inch wide and a mile deep. And being deep and understanding who you are, who you exist to serve, and delivering for them is the ticket, is the miracle, is the thing that creates that relationship. When people feel seen and understood and served, they will show up and bring their friends. And so we're going to talk today about a 7-step process that you can practice to begin to experiment on moving in that direction of going from this wide, let's hope that we're going to communicate to everyone and hope that the right people show up, to how can we begin to put our time and energy into building the kind of relationships that are going to create the biggest impact for you the fastest. Because what happens is when you're out there trying to fill up this bucket and then this bucket and then this bucket, I mean, how do you guys all feel? I'm sure some of you feel like you might be doing any of that. And you might feel like the effort that you're putting in trying to fill up all these buckets is just dripping out the bottom. And by the time you get to bucket number 6 or 8, there's nothing left in bucket number 1. There's nothing left in your prospecting leads. There may be even nothing left in your own personal tank of energy to try and cultivate these relationships, because it just feels like you're grinding and it's exhausting, right? And so let's start by thinking about, what is a relationship? Like, what kind of relationships do you need? A lot of times we start by thinking about the who. So we're going to actually pause and think about the what. So before you can think about the who, you need to understand, like, what is your why? What are you trying to get people to do? Like, at the end, when we get to that conversion marketing point of things, what is the purpose of creating a relationship in the first place? And so this is a question we ask all of our clients. Like, this is our seminal thesis statement question. What do you need people to do in order to thrive? Because if you don't know what that endpoint is, what's your North Star? Where are you going? What do you need to funnel people towards? What happens is the risk is that you're going to spend a lot of time investing in building lots of different relationships with people that may or may not be the best people to help you on your journey towards working together to serve the issue that you exist to serve. And you want to attract and engage the people that believe what you believe, want what you want, and trust that you are the people to make their dream happen. And so a great exercise to do with your team, this is something that we do when we do, collaborative consulting engagements. We do a lot of this in our brand strategy work, trying to understand what is the key thing that we're trying to make happen here. And so we call it desirable actions. There are many, many desirable actions, many things that you want people to do. So get a group of people together and make a list. Make a big long list and throw everything that you can think of. The key thing is the word action. So by desirable actions, they should be things with a verb in it. Buying, showing up, coming, volunteering. Like this is an example. I love this picture because we one time had an opportunity to do this out at a beach, and it was the best looking room we ever worked in. And so this was a session that we did for a project around oyster recycling and reclamation, and getting more people involved in the whole process of recycling and buying oysters and composting them, the whole ecosystem. And so they needed a lot of different things that they wanted people to do. And so they made a whole giant list of all the things that they thought would be great if people did them. And so when you think about these things, you have to get to that next step, because it's going to be a list of kind of everything. But there are two kinds of things, two kinds of actions, and that you want to be tracking and looking at to kind of see, are you moving in the right direction, right? One of those things is called I call them a journey metric or a journey indicator. Is someone on the path to getting to that ultimate desirable action? Like, you want them to be here. They're probably not going to walk in the door and marry you, right? You've got to date them a little bit. You've got to build a relationship. What does relationship building look like at your organization? And so those are things that we would call a journey. Are they on your social media liking things? Are they sharing what you're posting? When you ask them to share something for you, like, do you have a board that when you say, could you post this on your social, do they do it willingly? Or do they drag their feet and say, well, I'll get around to it when I can, and then never do it? Are they commenting? Are you expanding your reach? Are people mentioning you? Are people mentioning you without you asking them to mention them? Are they asking you questions? Are you getting inquiry? Are people engaging with you? Visits, subscribers, like, what is it for you? Everybody is different. So these are really great things to think about when you're at that beginning stage of building relationships. The risk of these is that a lot of times we have absolutely no idea if any of the stuff that happens over here on this journey side is actually a journey. Like, are these things that people are doing moving towards the desirable action? Or are they just things people are doing? I mean, how much time do you all spend on social media getting people to do things like this? Do you have any way of knowing, when are they jumping the fence? When are they crossing the over? Is it happening for you? And so when we think about the marketing side of building a relationship, where are you putting your energy? Where are you putting your time? Are you putting it all into things that you believe, you hope are building relationships, but you don't know? And so it's an important thing to think about, because we all spend a lot of time doing marketing. Many of you are what I lovingly call slash marketers. Like, maybe you came to your business or your organization to be a program manager or the executive director, and somebody said, hey, could you just post this thing on social, or could you change this thing on the website? And now your title is like development director slash communications director. Any of you here today, right? Or, you studied theater or poli-sci, and now you're expected to do all of this stuff too. This relationship building, it's a lot. And it's a lot of extra stuff, and it costs time, it costs money. So you want to make sure that when you're thinking about investing in relationship building, how can you make sure that it delivers on the effort that you're putting in? So it's important to also consider those outcome metrics at that conversion state at the end of the relationship. What is the ultimate desirable action? Both things are important. So some of those things you want to think about are we looking to donate? Okay, so when we think about desirable actions, is it any donation? Or all donations equal? Or do you really thrive if you could grow your cohort of people that give you $10,000 a year? Could you grow your cohort of people that give you $3,000 a year? Who knows? You could be even at the $1,000 level, the $250 level. Go in and take a look and think about, what is the thing that, if we could 10x this or 100x this, we would just be golden. Like, where is the real momentum builder for your organization? Is it getting people to join? Are you a membership organization? Is it renewals, keeping people? Is it that you've gotten a bunch of first-time donors, but you're struggling with people staying in the mix and recurring gifts? Maybe it's volunteering, because not all outcomes are even financial. Lots of organizations are funded in different ways. Maybe you are a family foundation, and so you've got the money, but you're looking for other things. Maybe you need different things. So it's okay if it's not a monetary thing that is your ultimate desirable outcome. But if it is, if you're an organization that needs funding in order to thrive, it's important to not dissociate from that, to really think about that. But there are other things as well, right? Maybe it's your goal right now is to really build that deep connection, to like get people to feel it, to really believe what you believe. Maybe your goal is to get people to become a vocal advocate. Maybe that's what you truly need. And your desirable action is to get other people speaking on your behalf. Maybe you want them to inspire other people. Maybe you're an organization, maybe you're in an like anti-smoking campaign or something, and your actual goal as an organization is a behavior change. So it's important to consider whether or not your ultimate outcome is something like a specific level of a donation or a growth in your in a category of donation, or is it something else? But don't let the soft stuff scare you away from focusing on the important financial stuff that you need as an organization. So this is an important first step. Get really, really clear. What do you need people to be doing in order for you to thrive? Okay. Because this is the matrix that we're working with. This is the matrix that everyone is working with, right? And in marketing, in relationships building, it's easy to be busy. Very, very easy. I can't tell you how many times I'll be working with a client and they'll show me their marketing report of like, here's our report that we're giving to our board about how successful our marketing is. And what I actually see on that report is a list of activities. We posted 20 times this month on social media, and calling that a measure of success. Maybe it is, but all that really is a fact. If you posted 20 times on social media and then that generated a number of shares, and then through those shares, you were able to track links to your website, and then through those links to your website, you were able to track people over through to giving you a donation. Now you can have a trajectory that shows how your journey metric leads to your outcome metric. So it's important to think about, where are you right now? What are you shooting for with your desirable action? Obviously, the gold star that we all want are to focus on people that are going to give us both high mission and high money, right? But you may be a different kind of organization. There are times that it is valuable to focus on things that are high mission, but don't make you a lot of money or any money. Every organization is structured differently. And some of what you do might be critically important, but not be a money generator. That's okay, as long as you have a way that you can thrive, right? On the flip side, you might have stuff in that sort of bottom left quadrant. Maybe you have things you do that aren't really mission focused, but they pay the bills. They're the thing that you do that makes sure that you have enough money so that you can do the other things. Like you might even call something like Habitat for Humanity has a restore, right? It's basically a shop that anybody can come to and buy things. On the surface, running a store for people to buy things might not look like it's mission driven, but ultimately the money that they make in that store is what goes back into their program and funds other things. So it all depends on how you look at it. What we want to avoid is bleeding out our time and energy on building relationships that are low mission, low money. And I know that seems obvious when I'm saying it here, like, duh, of course, Beth, we're not going to do it. But like, how many of us have been sucked into something like that? Somebody saying to you, oh my gosh, I have somebody that you have to meet. And then you have meeting with that person after meeting with that person after meeting with that person. And like nothing ever happens. And like, you feel like, well, I shouldn't call it quit, because maybe at some point this person's really going to flip because I know they have money. Or you go into like wealth searching and look for people that have a lot of money, but they may have zero interest or zero, like there's no evidence that they have any interest in your cause. So like you're spending a lot of money going after somebody that may be a very long trajectory away from being interested in you. You know, I often call that hope marketing. Like, wouldn't it be great if we got Mackenzie's money this year? Wouldn't it be awesome? Yes, it would. But do you want to spend your time and money going after Mackenzie Scott's money? or do you want to invest in the people that have proven to care about what you care about? So that's what we want to think about. Like, what is your leading domino? When you think about these desirable actions, where do you need to look back? I used to say things like, what's the one thing, if you can only pick one thing, but that freaks people out when I tell them you're only going to pick one thing. So don't think of it like we're only going to focus on one kind of person. But think of it as like, if we could get this thing working really well, it would really fill up that first bucket. And if that first bucket is full of relationships that start giving back to us, then that's going to generate the energy and the money that's going to help us fill our next bucket. So what's that thing? What's that leading domino that will help spark things at your organization? And that if you focused your time on there, you're going to get the best return. So that's half of the equation. The other half of it is actually becoming willing to focus. And this is hard because there's that knee-jerk reaction that wanting to be everywhere, wanting to do everything, wanting to serve everything, wanting to address every potential thread of relationship that's out there. But I can tell you, it's going to spread you really thin from a functional perspective, but it's also going to spread you thin from a perception perspective. If you try and be everything to everyone, no one's going to really know what you stand for. And people are attracted to people and organizations that have a stake in the sand, that believe something, that believe what they believe in, that they understand them. So we have to get willing to focus and narrow down from searching everywhere to really get to looking at who that is. And so the question I ask here, here's the key question here: upon whom is your future dependent? Upon whom is your future dependent? This is a great way that my friend Cynthia Round taught me this phrase, and I love it because there's a million people that might help you. But if you think about your strategic plan and all of your goals on your strategic plan, out of all the people that may at some point help you, imagine like who is the next person? Who's the person that could help you this year? Help move the needle forward on those big things, on those desirable actions that are going to lead you to being able to deliver on your strategy, on your plan, on your mission. So next step, you made a whole list of desirable actions. Now go back and do that with audiences. Now, I call, like, ultimately you're getting to a relationship, but before you're at the point where you have a relationship, you start at your audiences. So make a big list. Who are all the people that you're talking to? Who are all the people that donate to you now? What are those groups? What are those categories? How could you list them out? You know, these people said local community leaders, people who work in the environment, the Chamber of Commerce. It can be anything and everything. Don't worry about trying to limit yourself. But you'll see when you're done, you're going to have a list of maybe 18, 20, even 30 audiences. And you'll look at that and I'll say, imagine me in your head saying, do you have the capacity to speak equally to all these people at once? Okay, number one question. Number two, do you have the capacity to segment your marketing so that you could speak to each of them well? Most of the time for people, the answer is no to both. You don't have the capacity to speak to everyone well all together in a bucket. What happens then is you start communicating to your people like there's a sale on commas, right? If you're a community leader or the Chamber of Commerce leader or a millennial or in a student youth service program, then we are the perfect organization for you, comma, 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 comma. And the more commas, the more you have in there, the less anyone's going to believe that you're perfect for them. Okay. So this is an important thing to think about, is how do you narrow your focus and look at this? So the next thing I usually have people do is go now back to your list of all those desirable actions and pick out that leading domino. What's that one thing that if you focused on that right now, if you put them in the center of your circle, you would be poised to thrive, right? Then come back to this list and look at it and say, out of all the people on this list, who's taking that action now? Who are those people that right now are doing that thing that is spinning the wheel and making things move for you today? And it's hard. It's hard to narrow down and choose that. And so this is a little exercise that we often will take people through. This is like a mind thing of how I want you to think about it. Because 18, 20, 30 different audiences. I would argue in a marketing way, there's really 4 audiences, right? So over here on the left, you've got your lovers. You know who they are, right? Those are those people that are taking those desirable actions now. They may be taking all of your journey actions too. Those are the people when you say, I need a thing, they're like, I'm there. I gotcha. I'm looking for a matching gift. I'm looking for a volunteer. I need a house. I need somebody to open up their home and let us have an information session there. Yes, 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 yes. Those are your lovers, the people that are taking that desirable action. The metric I like to use is 6 or more times, right? 6 or more times that if it's like, okay, the people that have given you $3,000 every year for the last 6 years, maybe that's it. Maybe it's something else. But your lovers, you know who they are. They're your shower-uppers, right? So what happens is when people are looking for more to grow your audience, to build more relationships, what happens is they typically jump from lovers all the way to the other side to the unaware. So these are the people that love us. Now we want everyone else, right? Well, the challenge with everyone else is that they don't know you at all. So you're pulling them in from everywhere. And so the unaware are the people that are going to say, you know what we really want from you? We'd love it if you could run karate lessons for us. Thanks. Right. And you're like, that's not what we do. But they're like, well, we're everyone and we want everything. They're randoms, they're outlier people. You have no idea what they want. And it's exhausting to have to pull them in, right? So that's the other one. Then the next place people like to focus on is what I jokingly call the haters, because it makes people pay attention when I say haters, right? So haters are your outliers, right? They're the people that did something once and then never did it again. They gave you one donation. They showed up at one event. They volunteered for one thing. They did something sporadically, right? But they're on your list. And so you're thinking of them as a prospect, right? Because they're in your list. They're taking up space there, but they showed up. Maybe they were a member for a year and then they didn't renew, right? But you're like, I want to get them back, because how do we not? Like, they were here and you feel like we had them and we let them go. I would encourage you to think of these people like your ex-boyfriend, right? What happens when you're trying to chase your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend, right? Oh no, honey, I'll change. What do I have to do to bring you back, right? What happens when you chase people that have tapped out and said, you're not for us. This is not what I'm interested in. You end up trying to turn yourself into knots to try and become what someone else wants you to be. And what that does is it pulls you off your center. What do you think happens to your lovers if you're out there spending all your time trying to make the haters happy? The one-off people that go, could you add this? Could you do this? If you just became this, then we would do it. I mean, you've probably all spent some time doing that. It doesn't work. And all it does is it just makes you try and do too many things, too much stuff, making too many people happy. And while that's happening, you're risking the center dropping out from your support system, because those people that love you all of a sudden are saying, well, they clearly don't care about us anymore, do they? Right? But then the challenge is, if your lovers are, and this happens a lot, your lovers might be the 78-year-old people that you're worried aren't going to be around anymore. And you're thinking, well, we need some new people, because those guys are great, but they're either aging out, shall we say, of donation, or they're in a category of group that you would like to expand beyond. Sometimes that means you'd like to be more racially diverse. Sometimes that means you'd like to be more age diverse. Sometimes it means something else. You're looking to not just get more people that love you, but more different people that love you. Okay. So the group that is often the most overlooked is what I call the likers. So now imagine you're going back to that desirable action and that group of people that's taken it 6 or more times, right? Now think about the people that are sort of in the liminal space between that. Maybe your desirable action is somebody that gave you $1,000 and they've done it 6, 7, 10 times, right? is there anybody on your list? Go back, do your search, right? This is why databases and tools like DonorSearch are so valuable and so important. Are there places that you can find that people share those interests? Who are people that are very much like your lovers, but are a little bit different, but have proven that they've shown up? I like to look for people on your list that have maybe taken a desirable action 2 or 3 times, right? Or maybe another way to look at it is, so say this happened once with one of our clients. Their desirable action was people that were giving $10,000 gifts, 6 or more times. So what we did was we went back, we went into the database, data is key, went into the database and went and looked what was their first gift. And surprisingly, across the board, almost all of the people that were regularly giving $10,000 year over year over year, their first gift was $250,000. So what that told us is if we focused on building relationships with $250,000, not thousand, $250 donors, the data showed that we have the best chance of getting that group of people to become our $10,000 donors. And so see what I mean by, like, it seems crazy to focus down, but when you focus down and look and see what's happening, look at the people who are taking those actions now, as opposed to saying, we want something random and different and something else. This gets you into a centered way of being as an organization and as building relationships and executing your marketing, as opposed to all those buckets that are dripping out. Chase, 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 chase. Imagine that you now have your lovers centered in the center of your circle, right? You're ignoring all of these people, because if you're aiming for the center of your circle, you have all of these rings that you can hit before you fall off entirely. If you jump from the center of your circle all the way to the outside, chances are you're going to miss those lovers entirely. Same thing with these haters and outliers. If you're aiming at the outer edge of a target, you're going to miss. You're going to miss. You're out there on the edges. But if you aim for the middle, like imagine you're writing messaging for your emails for your lovers, and then you understand what your likers care about. So the space between those two, we call shared values, right? We understand what are the values that those two groups share. And then once you understand what those two groups share, you can look for those values in new audiences that may look very different than your current audiences. And that allows you to message to them in a way based on what they all value, that keeps you from writing comma, 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 and also keeps you from having to write a million segmented messages. You've got this centered approach based on what we all care about versus just starting at that stage of what we want people to do. Here's an example. So this is an organization in Philadelphia here where I am, and they were writing email newsletters that and they're what do you call them? The appeals, the annual appeals. And it was, I call it a smorgasbord appeal. I don't know if any of you have had to deal with any of this or have something like this. I say that they were getting their annual appeal confused with an annual report. Their annual appeal was basically, here's a list of all the stuff we did this year, including our new staff hires. It was, here's what we did. And it was very factual and very functional, right? And what happened was they had a list of 46,000 prospects on their list, right? On the 46,000 prospects that they were mailing to. Can you all calculate how much that must cost, right? Out of that list, they had 280 donors every year funding them. 280 of those people out of 46,000. And what they were doing was they were writing, we do this and we do this and we do this and we do this, thinking if we just put enough stuff out there like a smorgasbord, maybe one of those people on the 46,000 list is going to 1 year say yes, right? Occasionally it would happen, but they were going an inch wide and a mile deep, right? So here's what we did. We cut the list down to 4,600. So massive cut to the list. And we did that based on, okay, we obviously kept our 280 donors in there, but we looked at who are our likers, who had given 2 or 3 times, but maybe hadn't given this year. So we put those lie bunts, those side bunts into there. Who was reading emails? Who was paying attention? Who was showing up at events? So we cut off all the people that were just a name on the list. narrowed it down. We saved a ton on the mailing. We then segmented, we did one segment specifically messaging to givers, one segment specifically messaging to interested prospects. We shifted it to two things that we talked about. This is a little example, but then we told some outcome stories. This is what happened because of you. Multi-channel, instead of just a letter, we put it up on the website, we put it out on social, and then we had a clear ask. None of this, give us money, or maybe sign us up for, join us on Facebook. There's a time when you push towards one thing. This is conversion marketing, right? This is what happened. 20% increase, in just 1 year, which had never happened for them. Their goal was a 10% increase. And so we doubled what their goal was by cutting things down and focusing. Okay, got to keep moving here. So focusing in, narrowing down on those people. So now you've got a group of people that you kind of are aware of. You've got your lovers, you know who they are. You've got your likers, you kind of have a sense of who they are. A great thing that you can do is talk to them. Have a great conversation. You'll go into your database, see who some of these people are. They're your lovers. Trust me, they will talk to you. We often go in and do this sort of interviewing for people, but we've had clients that do it themselves. Here's a list of questions that you can ask people. How did you become aware of this? What are your primary reasons for staying involved? Like, ask them what they care about. Why are you here? What's meaningful to you? And my favorite question that I learned from my friend Amanda Kaiser is, let's see, it's over here on the second list. And it's basically asking people, can you tell me a story of something that you get here that you couldn't get anywhere else? And can you tell me a time that showed up? So it's basically asking your donors, can you tell me a story, an example of a time that you really saw our mission in action, that you really felt the value of your participation in here? And I'm telling you, what you will hear is magic. It's amazing. That's when you will understand the emotion that people need to feel connected with you. And when you learn what the underlying emotions are, this is amazing stuff. So Elaine is asking me, do I do this via email or in person? Neither. I typically do it on a Zoom call. I wouldn't recommend doing it in person. I actually recommend doing it on a Zoom call because you can then record the call and get it transcribed. And then you can take that transcription and do an analysis and look at what all of the people say together. So I would not recommend doing it by email, because by email, you can't ask a follow-up question. What the beauty of a phone call and a conversation is, people are going to take you down their wandering path. So these calls serve to give you valuable information, to have you truly understand what lovers really care about. But it also, I cannot tell you how many times I've done these calls and people said, thank you so much for asking. These calls alone are relationship building. So pick your lovers, but pick those lovers that you have a relationship with and want to build a better relationship with. It's deeper than a check-in call. It's a call about like learning what they care about. Yes, I guess you could call it a check-in, but it's a structure. It's a research call. So they need to know that you want to understand what they value about this organization, that you're trying to learn how to serve more people like them, and to grow it beyond to more people. So it's a deep relationship building call, but you want to get the answers because you want to look at how everybody's answers are together. I have found that within 10 to 13 calls, I feel like I know my answers. You don't need to do that many, but I would say do calls like this all the time. Do them as a bank if you want to treat it as research and use them to compare them together. But any opportunity that you have to get on the phone and have a conversation will help you. So this is to say, so what can show up in a conversation that you want get on a survey? So this is an example from one of our clients who we gave them a list of questions. We customized it for them. They went out and did the questions. And then this is what their people are telling them, that your organization fills a unique niche. And then what that unique niche is, they didn't really, like they always believed that they filled a unique niche, but they didn't have the words to describe what that unique niche was. So then from there, you don't have to do this, but a next step you can do if you really want to get clarity on who you want to build relationships with, we develop personas. So we take that, we bring people together into a room or onto a Zoom call and go through an exercise and be like, let's create our imaginary lover. A lot of times they base it on somebody that they know, but like create your imaginary lover, create your imaginary, imaginary, I'm going to just go back for somebody needs to say it. Create your imaginary lover, create your imaginary liker. And then when you understand what those values are, then you can start to create your prospects. All right. So I'm going to show you, here's an example. So this is for a different environmental organization. And, this is like the embodiment of somebody that they know. But look down here, we were able to get to Chip's motivations. Like, what does Chip care about? And that's where you're able to get to relationship building. You can't just know like demographics. You can't just know, our lovers are, 75-year-old white men. Like that's great. Like that's a fact about them. But like, okay, that's what he is, but who is he? What does he care about? Why is he involved in your organization? And not just why is he here for you, but look at this. Chip's goals are to create a better world by positively impacting his community and environment and creating a legacy. So what this is about is understanding what Chip cares about. Remember when I said he's here to fuel his dreams? Do you know his dreams? These calls, these opportunities to create this person is how can you make sure that you are more in tune with what your audience's dreams are, so that as you're working to build a relationship with them, you are serving them as you're inviting them to serve the cause that you both care about. You're not asking them to give to you. You're asking them and inviting them into an opportunity to do something meaningful that they care about in partnership with you. Changes everything, right? And so then in this case, for this client, we have our lover, we have our liker, and then we're like, okay, so who cares about the same things that they care about that has shown up in your world, but you're not deep enough with them. You don't have enough of them. And so one of the people they wanted to get more involved with is like retired people, scientists who are retiring, who are going to start by getting involved through volunteering and eventually become donors. And then the other prospect that they're looking for, this is an organization that really wants to communicate that they are not a local organization, that they have a national footprint, that the science that they're doing has a national impact. And so they realize that their current lovers and likers, they share the same values, but they're local. And if they want to really reach their strategic goals, they have to build relationships with people outside their area. So we build a persona for somebody outside the area, but who thinks like the people that they already know. Right? So step 5, messaging, right? So now we know, now imagine how different writing messages to people are going to be if you understand them as people, if you know what they care about, as opposed to just what you want them to do for you, right? And so when it comes to messaging, you have to recognize that before you get somebody to take action, they need to care, right? They need to care. They need to want to take action. They need to be motivated. They're not going to do something just because you tell them to, right? Wouldn't it be great if that happened? But unless they're your lover, that you need to bring them along, right? And so, but people aren't going to care until they're aware. So when you're messaging, you need to think about this person that you're trying to build a relationship with. Where are you in your relationship with them right now? Is this person primed and ready for a due message? Are they ready for you to ask them for a matching gift? If it's somebody that's just been on your prospect list that hasn't even opened your emails, and you say, hey, we're doing a giving day, could you give us a $5,000 matching gift? You're probably going to get a no, but if it's somebody that you've been interacting with, that you've been talking to, that you understand what they care about and what they're trying to do, you can then come in and say, hey, I know that you really care about this issue. We're doing this campaign and there's an opportunity for a matching gift as part of it. Would you like to be part of making this thing that you care about move forward, right? Where are they? Are they ready for that? Or do you have to back up? Do you have to start with introducing them to your organization? No, feel, do. So no is about awareness. Like, are you at the stage in a relationship where you've got to build in awareness, just provide them with information, let them know that you exist, right? In that relationship, in that middle stage, how do you then develop an emotional connection? How do you understand them and know what their motivations are? How can you create that emotional connection before you get to that conversion stage of taking that desirable action? So know, feel, do. Honestly, marketing is as simple as that. Like, we have lots of words, awareness, conversions, all of this stuff. What do you want people to know? What do you want them to feel? What do they need to feel before they take the step that you want them to take? So from there, look, now that we understand that, we can create messages in all of those buckets. We know what outcomes. So we've got each of these personas. What is the outcome? So we have to stay attuned to that. You can't just start messaging randomly. What is the outcome? Why are we communicating to these people? What is the do step that we want to move them to? And then you can start writing some key messages. And start to understand, what do we need to be telling these people? What do we need to connect him to? Francis, we need to connect him to ideas and solutions for his farm. So how can we give first? How can we show him that we're there for him before we go in the other way, right? And so then number 6, try a focused project. So you now have a key person that you're going to focus on, right? So pick one. Where do you want to begin to build relationships? Maybe it's your likers, but maybe it's one of these groups of prospects that you focused on. Pick one group of prospects that have similar needs and interests, right? That, so they're all kind of interested in the same thing, so that you can create something that is, what you might be wanting to create is a phone call, an individual specific thing. But from a marketing perspective, we're always going to say, what's something that you can do to start to bring new prospects into that next step, move them forward? And then what's the one specific action that you're looking for right now? Are you is it a journey? Is it an interim thing that you're looking for them to do? Or is it an outcome? Is this experiment that you're going to try? Is it we want you to give us money? Or is it, we want you to join our email list? We want you to follow us. Like, where are you in this relationship with this person? Pick one thing, right? And then based on that outcome, that thing you want them to do, what's the one most important thing that they either need to know or feel or do, depending on where they are right now? What do they need to be able to take that action based on where they are in your relationship right now? And then what's the one strongest thing that they need to feel, right? Okay, you start with the know. What do they need to know? What do they need to feel in order to be motivated into action? And then this is the do step. Create a micro campaign, create a thing. So it might be a little campaign, or it might be a tactic or a tool. Try an experiment, create a new thing, very targeted to build a relationship with a new group of people, and then track it based on what action you're looking for. Are you looking for an outcome? Did you get it? Are you looking for interim steps? Are you looking to grow your email list? Did it work? All right. And so that organization, Stroud, that I'm showing you, they did this. So they decided that they wanted to focus on something specifically for this Francis character. And so what they did was they decided, like, they are a nonprofit, environmental nonprofit, very small team. I think their key person was out on FMLA. So they were really stretched thin. So what they decided to do was, they've been doing an email newsletter for years and years and years. So they took their bank of email newsletters, picked out articles that were already written that were evergreen, that would be good and interesting all the time, right? So they started there. Then they narrowed that down again to the articles that would be interesting to Francis, who lives out of the area. And then they put them up into ChatGPT and instructed ChatGPT to refresh and rewrite these in the style of a LinkedIn newsletter. And so now, with very little lift, very little work, they have a whole new tactic, a whole new content for this person that they really didn't have any relationship with before, to get him engaged. And what they're tracking, so their outcome metric that they're tracking for this is, are they getting this person to read this newsletter and then go over to the website? And so they can track that because they're specifically looking for prospects from outside our like little Pennsylvania area. So any traction, any any traffic that comes to the website from outside this area is one indicator that they're looking at. And another indicator they're looking at is, are they getting more traffic from LinkedIn coming to the website? So there you go, two measurable traffic points that they can see that can tell them whether this relationship building is working, right? Then they'll get to a next step. Step 2 will be, how do we engage him and get him to join our list and do the next thing? But step 1, get him paying attention. Does that make sense? So here we go. Pick one, so they picked one. Their goal was Francis. That was their one person. The one specific action, track the website. The one most important thing for them to know was that they are a national organization, that they're not a local organization. And the feeling that they wanted him to feel was impressed, right? So they were very clear, this is what we want to achieve through this. So last piece, and then we're wrapping up here. Fill in the gaps, okay? So I just taught you about how to focus in on a person that you want to build a relationship with and how to deliver things that are going to connect with what they care about. So after you do that, ultimately, we all know there's due marketing that needs to happen. What happens a lot in marketing is, I always say it's kind of like a heartbeat, right? And so event means, it could literally mean an event, but an event means a due event. It might be show up at our annual gala. It might be give us money, right? And so what happens is you're out here selling, right? And in between these events, in between these big peak events, I call it the trough of silence, right? What are you doing in between asking somebody to do a thing for you and then asking somebody to do another thing for you? A lot of times marketing and fundraising communications can devolve into, we need a thing done, we need a thing done, because you're small teams, you don't have a lot of capacity, right? And so sometimes it's all you can really manage, it feels, to just get your appeals out and get people to come to your events. But the risk of that is that all you're doing is asking people to do things, take action for me. It's basically all push and no pull, all do for me, do for me, do for me, no giving back. And so the question is what can you do in those troughs of silence, in between your asks, to fill that bucket of getting people to know you and getting people to care about you? How can you inspire them, educate them, thanking them, showing impact, critical, thanking and showing impact before you ask them to give you money again? How can you celebrate and surprise them? How can you amaze them and delight them? Everyone has content in these buckets that you could probably find and repurpose to do this kind of a thing. Because if you spend all of your time selling, and I know you might not want to think of getting people to come to events and giving you money as selling, but it is, they're going to feel sold to. And that's a really tough way to build a two-way mutual value relationship. So another way to look at this is, yep, there we go. In marketing words, you've got your acquisition, your conversion, your awareness, your engagement, your retention, right? If you're a person that look at these through the lens of marketing language, that's where those things belong. If you look at it through my hopefully simplified language, you've got your do's at the top and your knows and your feels in the middle. So after you do that, that may be enough. That may be all you can handle. But another really cool thing that we've done that can be very helpful, super easy to do yourself, make yourself a little spreadsheet chart. Put every month of the year across the top, and then go through and put down all the things that you do. Put your appeal on one line, put your event on the next line, put your thanking on the next line, put any, if you have a campaign, a giving day, something like that on the next line, and then tag it. One color for when you're asking people for things, asking them to do things. One thing that in this one we did thanking, and then see the purple? The purple is relationship building, right? And then the blue is silent. And then the orange color is impact. And so what are you seeing on this color chart, right? There's no impact. Like, this is a project that we did for a client, and after we color tagged it, like they weren't really recognizing that they were never showing their people the impact of their participation, the impact of their gift. And so it's amazing how just mapping out what you're doing and tagging it can be so enlightening, and it doesn't take that long. So I love this quote, especially when it comes to relationships. If you keep making withdrawals without making any deposits, eventually you'll hit zero, right? Relationships have to be a two-way street. And when you understand what you need as an organization to thrive, and you understand what your audience deeply cares about, that is the really strong place to start finding and keeping the perfect people for your organization without trying to be everything to everyone. So I hope that that was helpful. We're right here, I know, at the top of the hour, but Jay, do we have time for a minute or two of questions?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Beth. And
Mhm.
any presentation that ends with Mr. Potato Head is
I
obviously
know, I love
in
that
my book.
picture.
Uh, no, this is great. And I know that people will ask about the slides. So are these something you're willing to share?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll send you a
Uh,
copy of the slides.
would you like us to send them, or do you want to send them, or what?
So I would say, ideally, if you'd like to send Jay, like give
Sure.
Jay permission, that it's okay, and then we'll send, we can send it out to you. Um, and I also like to say, all of this stuff that we talk about is about getting clarity on your brand, and that's not always a word that people in nonprofits use. And so I just always like to give a little shout out at the end that we're doing a conference on branding, because it's not something that people usually focus on for nonprofits. A lot of times things about branding are designed for for-profit companies. And I just think that nonprofits deserve to have brand addressed in a way that's appropriate for them.
Sure. So you can grab that code right there. And also Jack can probably just put that URL in the chat for those who want to grab it that way. And
Thanks,
there
Jack.
it is. Thank you, Jack. And Beth, if you wouldn't mind coming back on camera so people can see you for a second. And then if there are any questions, I want to make sure we can tackle them and people can see you doing so.
Yep.
And also just, if you wouldn't mind summarizing, you have those 7 points. Can you just hit them again? Do you mind
Oh,
doing
geez. Now you're going to make me remember them all. So it's sort of 7 steps. And so the
Right.
first step is, I should have put it, that's true. You know what? Before I send the slides over, I will add a step that summarizes them all in one. So the first step is getting clarity on what is a good relationship? What do you mean by relationships?
Right.
And so that's about figuring out what you need to thrive. Step 2, becoming willing to focus, right? Step 3, getting to know people, asking good questions. I'm gonna have to go back and be like, what are all my steps? Step 4, clarifying. I might feel like I'm missing one. Ultimately, we're getting down to step 5, where you have, messaging. Step 4 was messaging. So you know who you're talking to. Step 5 is creating good messaging that serves both them and you. Step 6 is creating a little experiment, doing one thing to get out there and test your messaging and test this prospect. And then step 7 is, after you've done that test, how do you fill in the gaps to create a good, even flow to continue an ongoing communications relationship? Well, miracle, I did it.
That's perfect. And I love that slide also showing how when you did an analysis of an organization and what they were doing and when they weren't doing it, or when they were being silent, trough of silence being in their court in this case, not the thing we usually hear, right? People will say, well, the donors aren't, they're not doing anything. Well, no, it's what we are not doing, how we're not pulling.
Exactly. And there's nothing, I just also want to say, there's nothing wrong with some silence, right? Like you don't need to, but here's what I find is that what happens more often is that you've just asked and asked and asked and asked. So it's more silence out of a sense of like discomfort and guilt. Oh, we just begged them for money. We need to take a break and give them a break. Your lovers care about you. They want to hear about you. They want to support you. If you're bugging them, lover, right? They're not a lover, and you don't have to worry about them. They can then just move off of your list, and it's okay if people leave your list. But you need to do more for your lovers and your likers and your prospects than ask them to do things. And so that's where do you have a good rhythm that's the right pace for your organization and your people?
Perfect. And we do have a minute if anybody has a question. And so to give people a space to write one, either in the chat or the Q&A, if you have one, I want to just share that we have a couple things coming up that you may be interested in. First of all, this Friday, the PM podcast welcomes Karen Gershon CEO of Project Kesher, an organization that empowers women and fosters Jewish community leadership around the world, doing a lot of work with Ukraine and Russia and in Israel. Very interesting story, and you'll enjoy hearing that. That's on the PM podcast. And if you haven't been listening to that, we just hit our 100th episode with an interview with Eileen Heisman, the longtime CEO of National Philanthropic Trust, one of the largest and fastest growing charities in America. You can hear all about that and the Tony Martignetti episode we did recently. That's a lot of fun on the PM podcast. And then next week on Frontlines of Social Good, that's on Tuesday at 1 p.m. That's our news show. We bring together voices that I'm sure you want to hear from. One is Luis Diaz, founder of the Donor Participation Project and the Annual Fund Toolkit. And he's going to be joined later in the show with Michelle Flores-Vrin and Evan Wolstein, authors of the Social Impact Staff Retention Study. There's no episode of How to Raise next week, but if you put it on your calendar, do rejoin us on April 10th when we have Jen Newmeyer, Senior Director of Digital Fundraising Strategy at PBS. She's going to be here talking about how to do that work. She's also got a new book, but most importantly, we're in the thick of discussions about PBS. And so you'll want to definitely put that on your calendar to come and join us for that. So let's see if there are any questions here. The discount code for the conference is relationship 327. Oh, you just put that there. Okay.
That's just me, yeah.
Well, it looks like we're just getting people to say thank you. So that shows that you've answered every anticipated question.
It's sort of like a fire hose, I know. And a lot of times right after you've heard something that's really new and different, it's hard to even know what your questions are. Yes. So I put my email and my name is very unusual. Trust me, I'm the only one on LinkedIn. If you spell it right, you'll find me. So please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I always love to stay in touch with people. And if you think of a question after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. And everybody, you will be receiving an email with a link to a recording here, and I guess also of the slides. So thank you, Beth, for that. Do be on the lookout for it. If you don't see it, that means that it must have gone to spam. That'll come to you in the next 24 to 48 hours, something like that. If you have any questions about that or anything else, of course, you can always reach out to Beth for her work, but you can also reach out to us here at the series. You can reach out to me directly, either at LinkedIn or j@donorsearch.net. And you're going to see a survey right now. Please fill it out so we'll know what you want to see and hear in the weeks ahead. Until next time, take care. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks for having me.